Welcome to another day of our webinars. This has been the end of our second week of webinars, and they've been fantastic webinars so far. Some great stories, some good information. So for those that are listening, don't forget that we got these online on demand on our stormfootball.futbol.com. Today we got Chrissy Butler in from Wolves. Chris, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yourself?
Good to see you. Yeah, I'm doing just tickety boo, man, tickety boo. So thank you very much for giving up your time. And today you can give them a little bit of an overview of what you're going to be talking about. But first of all, why not, for those people that don't know you, let's just give a little bit of an intro who you are, and then we can go into your presentation.
Yeah, as Anthony said, my name's Chris Butler. I'm the lead 9s to 14s goalkeeping coach at Wolverhampton Wanderers over here in England. And obviously Wolves play in the Premier League, and we're doing quite well in Europe as well.
Good. So I'm going to leave you now. I'm going to switch myself off, Chris, so you can't see me, and I'm going to let you do your presentation, and we will connect back after the end of your presentation. Take it away.
Perfect. All right, guys, for those that are obviously watching live, and for those that are watching it back, thank you. I just thought I'll take a little bit of a different insight in terms of a presentation, in terms of a webinar, and kind of not really talk about what I do, but almost how I got where I was. I'm a great believer of taking opportunity and taking loads of networking and really connecting with loads of people. So I just want to do a presentation in terms of my journey of opportunity, really, and how I got to where I am, and the journey that took me along the way. So as I said, I work for Wolves currently. It has been a long journey. There's been loads of ups and downs, and obviously I'll explain that as I go through. So I'll take you back to 2007. I've just left college, well, sixth form, and I'm there working at TK Maxx. It was my first full-time job, really, out of school, straight away, my first job. And it was in retail. Now, I was there for 2-3 years. Got to a point where, you know, it wasn't really me. It was just a case that I just left college. I needed to get some money, and it was just a job offer that I just took. Don't get me wrong, I learned loads of things while I was there, but I also learned more about myself in terms of what I actually wanted to do in a career, and what I want to do for my life, and what I want to do for myself. So I sat there in the summer of 2009 and thought to myself, well, you know, what do I actually want to do? Well, I love sport, I love football. And as you can see, imagine me sitting behind the till, and all I could think about was Birmingham City and football. So I set myself a little goal, right? I've got to do something. I've got to motivate myself. I've got to get out of here. And if I want to work for Birmingham City, then I've got to do something that is a little bit more different than behind this till. So I went home, started to look at some courses, and then I applied for university. Now I got into 3 universities, and obviously I was only allowed to accept 1. But the one I did accept was my first major opportunity. And that was Bucks New University. It's a little bit different to what I was accustomed to. I was living at home with my mum, so I had to get my bags, pack up and leave. And although at the time it was highly stressful, that opportunity I'd never look back on. I'd always look back on, sorry. And the reason is, it was out of my comfort zone. It made me grow up. It made me mature, and it made me understand and realize that this is actually the biggest opportunity I'm going to have in my life, and I did it myself. I didn't wait for anyone to give me that opportunity. I had to go and source it. I had to go and, you know, study and make sure I had good grades, but then I had to make sure that my application for university was top notch so I could get in. Unfortunately, Bucks New Uni was one of those placements that gave me the opportunity to go and study. Now, the reason why I chose Bucks over the other 2 universities, one was Bristol, one was Brunel, was Bucks New University offered the level 1 and level 2 football courses. So it almost put me on a platform to be a coach. So that was an opportunity that I couldn't turn down. Whilst I was at university, though, I understood that it wasn't a case that I just study. I had to go away, I had to learn, I had to practice a trade that I wanted to be in. So what I did within my first year, I become a volunteer disability coach for Marlow FC, which was a local football club, which is in the 7th tier of the English leagues. and done a lot of high levels of disability sports. And along with that, I then joined as a volunteer disability coach at a local sports centre just near where I lived in High Wycombe. I then also, in the summer of my first year at university, I worked for International Quest. Again, it wasn't great pay, it was only 2 weeks pay. I worked there for about 4 weeks. What that entailed was Italian students come over to learn English, to learn our language, and to learn our ways of living. So that was through sport, which was highly enjoyable, but very difficult, especially for the younger children that came, who wasn't really fluent in too much of their English language. My biggest break really in my first year of university was when I became a football coach for Wycombe Wanderers. That was the local football club at my uni. It was just a community coach kind of job where I had to go into schools and just teach all sports. It wasn't just football. So I had to go in, teach cricket, teach tennis, teach badminton, and these lessons might be 20 minutes and they might be up to an hour. So it was, again, an opportunity to kind of get out there and again, go out my comfort zone and almost coach different things and different sports and different ways and different type of children. And I thought, if I look back on it, that was the kind of position that really fed me into what I really wanted to do as a career and as I wanted to do as a football coach. I then, at the end of that first year, joined a local charity, which was the Arran West Goalkeeping School. Now, it was a charity based on, unfortunately, a pupil at one of the schools that I was working at had sadly passed away quite young. And he was a goalkeeper, and he did quite a lot of stuff with Wycombe Wanderers in terms of their community projects as a child and taking part. And I thought it was a great opportunity for me to kind of get with the community and work in that sense and in that level. And then I became their volunteer goalkeeping coach. So I worked alongside someone called Corin Evans, who was my almost my first, how might I say, role model as a coach. Now, I worked with him closely. We worked only 2 nights a week, but he let me kind of lead coaching sessions, which was the first time I was able to do that. And again, that was another opportunity that I thought was really good. And again, if you look at this screen, they're not paid. The only one I got was the International Quest, and that was only worth the 2 weeks. So for my first year of university, although it was challenging, although it was difficult, networking wise, it was, for me, just something I had to do and really stem me going forwards. Now, into my second year, as you can see, I've built up my my networking, and I've had little different jobs. So I'll become a volunteer runner at the Birmingham Grassroots Football Show. Now, if anyone knows about this, good, but if you don't, what this was an indoor facility that we have here in England that is full of loads of grassroots football stuff. There was loads of professional coaches that come down and done loads of sessions for those that wanted to join in, and local football teams. And then there was also stands there, so people would come and sell their product as a football product or sporting products, and people could buy them. This lasted for about a week or 2, and as a volunteer, it was quite nice because I got to stay in a nice hotel. But again, I was only in Birmingham, so it was just at the end of the summer, just before I went back to university. Now, when I went back to university, I got a great position to become the Cheshire United Ladies Reserve Team Manager. And again, it was a different type of football. It was ladies. It's something that I hadn't done before, but again, another opportunity for me to kind of take part in and kind of learn about. And it might make me a little bit different as a coach. At the time, I didn't know, but now I know, and it really is beneficial. That then led me into going into the Berks and Bucks FA, and kind of asking them really in terms of if there was anything else I could do, because they had an association with Cheshire United, and they gave me an opportunity to be a student ambassador at my uni. So what that entailed was I was able to bring in a sport to my university that possibly wasn't there before. So what we chose to do was bring in futsal. And again, it was a great opportunity for me to learn a new sport. a great opportunity for me to learn almost the networking and the connections, because I had to work with different societies, I had to work with different councils, event management and everything. So in terms of an opportunity, that was massive for me, especially from a student side. And then they also let me be the under-13s Girls Development Centre assistant. Now, we almost had that kind of connection with Cheshire United ladies, where the girls would then progress into the under-16s, and then they'll go into the Cheshire United younger age groups, and then hopefully through to the reserve team. And then our end goal was to make them go into the first team. And then we had a great relationship with Reading Football Club and their ladies team, that the girls that were really good with the Cheshire United ladies had a possibility of a chance to go and play for Reading, who were obviously in a higher league. Now, during my second year as well at university, the FA ran a football five-a-side tournament, and their finals was at Wembley Stadium. Now, this was part of my student ambassador role with Berks and Bucks FA, so another opportunity for me to be a runner. Although it wasn't paid again, it was a great opportunity for me to then go and work at Wembley Stadium, the national stadium for football and the national stadium in England. And we got to play on the pitch at half time, which, as an opportunity goes, that was absolutely massive. And a fantastic weekend. Now, I go back to the Grassroots Football Show, and I think this really stemmed my opportunities in football, and where I really started to kind of understand the roles of coaching. During my time at the Grassroots Football Show, I met a person who some of you might be familiar with, Mark Meredith, and also Gary Gallagher, who ran Strike Zone, and I became their international coach. Now, that just came off the back of me saying hello, and me kind of being really interested in their product that Gary was selling at the time. And then a couple of weeks down the line, I get a phone call asking me to kind of come on board and be a coach for them, which I look back on now, and if I hadn't have done that, would I be where I was? I'm not too sure. I could have been, but I think that really helped me along the way. So then I move into my third year, and I go back on that meeting, or that kind of opportunity for me to say hello to someone, and it really propelled me as a coach. We had opportunities then to go to Norway and coach in Norway, which, you know, I'll never really forget. I grew as a coach, I grew as a person, and then I was able to network with football clubs like Celtic, Leicester, Derby, Burton, Munjendal, who were in the Premier League in Norway. And Joe, if you listen, obviously Joe, who's the coach with yourselves, he came over with me one of the times, and we had a great time at FC Munjendal. And I'm sure Joe would also say that the opportunity to go was immense, and something that he'll do over and over and again, which was really good. And then we also had some camps in Ike, and then we had most of our camps were in a place called Cogero, which was a beautiful town in the city of Telemark. But no, if I look back at obviously working and saying hello to someone and having that opportunity to go to Norway, would I do it all again? Of course I would. That really propelled me as a coach, and really propelled me to network with so many people, and gave me the opportunity to work with Strike Zone and work with up to spot on coaching with Celtic, Leicester, Derby. Obviously these were all different times, but it was a great time, and a great opportunity that I had. So these are some photos. I don't know if you can see me on the screen, but I don't have any hair at the minute due to the lockdown haircut situation. But if you can see my mouse, this is when we work with Celtic. So this is Mark, this is Gary, and this is myself, and this is William McNabb. He does some conferences over in America with Celtic, so some of you may be aware of him. This was our first camp in Norway. A great experience. Most of these children are now growing up. One of them is playing for Odd Grenland, who are a Premier League side in Norway, and he's been talk of him moving from into the German league for £3 million, which I think is fantastic. I won't be able to pick him out from the crowd, but he's only a child back then. this was us working for Manjandal, the same at the bottom. And again, the opportunities that we had were fantastic. And as a coach, this was really the first time that the opportunity arose for me to almost push myself as a coach, to understand what a coach needs to do, or a coach needs to plan, needs to evaluate. Whereas before, when I'm going into schools with Wickham at uni, it wasn't sort of like that. I had the plans already given. Whereas this, it was me as a coach that I had to go out and do it myself. And it really, really, you know, propelled me as a coach for me. The other opportunity I had with Strike Zone was to come over to America, to yourselves, to the beautiful Texas. So I've gone from one of the coldest places on earth to for me, one of the hottest places on earth. And I got the opportunity due to Strike Zone again. And then when I came over, I worked with Paul Gallagher, who was obviously the manager of Odyssey at the time. And again, that opportunity was another networking where I met Anthony, and I met other coaches from other clubs and from other areas around Texas. And that opportunity was superb. You know, again, I think without saying hello, I probably wouldn't have come to America in this caliber anyway. But again, it was really good, and it helped me as a coach because I started to learn and understand different variations and terms and technical terms. One from Norway, one from England, and obviously one from America, which was again superb from a coaching point of view. So these are some of the photos. This is Paul. This is myself. Obviously, we went to the CONCACAF Cup, Honduras v Mexico and Panama v America. Don't quote me on that one, but it was definitely those four that played. An opportunity for me to go and really kind of visit where JFK was, where he was shot. And since that moment, I've been into that story, and I've watched so many conspiracists and stuff like that. And again, it was an amazing opportunity. An opportunity arose where we got to watch FC Dallas's first team. This was a great opportunity for me. It was the first time I got to see a first team football or soccer team train, and then obviously look at what they do in training, and then go into their game against Stoke City. Stoke City were over pre-season and they're friendly. And then we got to meet some of the Stoke City players. This is Jack Butland, some of the Stoke City players at the hotel, which was local to the stadium. And again, a great opportunity then to work with many children over in America, and really help me learn as a coach and kind of progress as a coach as well. So now I've come to my final year of uni, and I've had all those opportunities, and obviously every opportunity that I had, every position that I took was different. I wanted to vary it up. I didn't want to just do one line of work. I wanted to make sure that at the end of university I had different avenues that I could move into, different avenues that I could work in. But I got to the end of uni, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do in terms of, I had too many avenues, I had too many links, I had too many networks. So it was quite difficult for me to choose and decide what I wanted to do. But I had an end goal that I wanted to work for Birmingham City. So obviously being in the men's football was a big thing for me. And one of the biggest opportunities that I had after university was a return home. Now, this photo is where I used to live in Norway, and I still call it home because in terms of an opportunity, I don't think it can get any bigger. It was, you know, a great opportunity for me not to go home and go back to the life that I had. I wanted to still be away from home, so I decided to live in a different country. I became the goalkeeper for Karaga. I was their first team goalkeeper. I also became their assistant manager. And this was a time where I found it really difficult because obviously the language was different for me. Although Norwegians are quite heavy with their English, and it was easy for me to communicate to them, it was quite difficult for them to communicate to me, for me to understand. But as an opportunity goes, I would do it again in a heartbeat. And unfortunate for my wife, although it's an expensive country, I will be retiring there It was just incredible. The opportunities I had as a goalkeeper as well. Obviously, I used to play for my university, play for local semi-professional football clubs when I was back home. And again, this was a step up for me in a different country, playing at a different level. And it was a really, really great experience. And then as an assistant manager, I ran the training sessions. So I came from, you know, coaching children in different countries to being in the men's game. And kind of that built me as a coach to work with the men's game, to work with how obviously men see football, rather than a child who absolutely loves it and you can just give them a ball and they'll run around all day without you even saying anything, to, you know, a first team football team who you know, you need to do something, you need to keep them stimulate, you need to keep it moving. So planning sessions, doing as what I needed to do as a coach was superb. So these are some photos, and this kind of opportunity then stemmed into more opportunities. So I hadn't really done much goalkeeping as a coach. Now, this was the avenue I wanted to go down, as that's how, you know, that was my position. So I started to create my own goalkeeping camps over in Norway. I did 5 in total, different clubs. This was the one which was up in Oslo. And it was just incredible for me to travel around Norway and for people to buy into what I wanted to do. And it was almost a case of me learning how to be a goalkeeping coach, but really working on the technical basics. And it really helped me. And this was where I started to be that goalkeeping coach, which, you know, I feel I've turned into. Now, that opportunity was fantastic, but that opportunity also finished. As I mentioned, I found it really difficult in terms of the language barriers. I also found it difficult in terms of it was a new challenge for me, which, although I thought I excelled in, it actually got to a point where I didn't feel like I was being effective in terms of my own coaching development. So I returned home. But when I returned home, there was nothing for me. So when I look back at the decision that I made, was it the right decision? Yes, but I should have made sure that I had an opportunity for when I returned. So what I did when I returned is I had to, you know, find a job, and unfortunately I had to come away from sport. I had to come away from football. So everything I learned at uni, everything I learned when I traveled to Norway, traveled to America, and then eventually lived in Norway, I felt that it stopped. So then I became a teacher. Well, more of a teaching assistant and a supply teacher. And again, I was given work, I was going to work, and I just had to read up a piece of paper, and I almost felt like I was back in that TK Maxx mode. But again, where was my next opportunity? So what I did is I looked back at all the networks that I made, all the connections that I made, and I got in touch with quite a lot of people. And then eventually I got in touch with Mark Meredith again, who then gave me a phone call, just asking would I like to come and do a session for a football club. It was a local football club to me, and obviously it was an opportunity for me to get back into the game, as we say. And that football club was Walsall. So I've gone in, I've done a session, I really enjoyed it. Obviously it was, you know, my passion had come straight back again. So this opportunity arose just because of those previous years where I said hello to someone. So for me, the networking issue of it was massive. And Walsall thankfully took me on board. And it was a great time. This was the time where I met, you know, other coaches, where although Corrin Evans was my first idol, the goalkeeping coaches that I met here, which was Phil Smart and Neil Cutler. Neil Cutler's now the first team goalkeeping coach at Aston Villa, and Phil Smart is the head of goalkeeping at Shrewsbury Town. Those two were really influential in making me the goalkeeping coach that I am today. They supported me all the way through. They gave me tips. They also, you know, invited me to their sessions. We did sessions together. And then this photo in the middle and this photo bottom right was when Neil Cutler made me one of his centres, he does a goalkeeping school as well, and he made me the goalkeeping coach for one of the centres, which was local to my home. So again, it was a great opportunity for goalkeepers to come in just off the streets, very grassroots, but for me to kind of coach them and put the technical elements into them. And you know, it was quite nice for those that then signed for academies. We had one come into Walsall, we had one signed for West Brom. And as a football coach, it was superb for someone to come off the streets as a grassroots goalkeeper or grassroots player, and you put some work in and they put the work in, and it gels, it bonds, it grows, and then obviously they get the opportunity to then go into another club. And that opportunity for me was something that was unreal. Unfortunately, when I was at Walsall, obviously the time was to leave. Walsall as a football club, when you look at the money side of football, it's quite low. It's down there in terms of, this was a category 3 club. So for me, I just felt I couldn't progress as a football coach. Now that was nothing to do with a football club. That was just due to, you know, facilities that unfortunately the football club can't change. They have changed. Sorry, recently, which is good to see. But me as a coach, I felt I was a little bit more than what Walsall could offer. Yes, that was me being a little bit arrogant, but I've always believed that I could give a little bit more. So, as I said at the start of the presentation, my dream goal was to work for Birmingham City. Well, my dream goal when I was a kid was to play for Birmingham City, but when that didn't happen, obviously the next best thing was to work for Birmingham City. And don't get me wrong, I'd cut the grass with a pair of scissors just to have worked for Birmingham City. So a job opportunity came up at Birmingham City where they were looking for a part-time goalkeeping coach, and I applied for the job. Now, when I look back at my cover letter, when I applied for the job, I find it really comical. I've still got it on my laptop somewhere. It was basically me not telling Birmingham my experiences at uni, my experiences in Norway, in America, and at Walsall, and different things that I'd done throughout those years. It was basically a cover letter where I just said, I love the club, I want to join the club, can I join the club, I'll be really good for you. It was like a 7-year-old fans letter. Miraculously, I was invited to an interview, and obviously to have had that interview process was outstanding for me. I was buzzing for weeks, and then the interview came up, and eventually I got the position. So I moved to Birmingham City. I'm in this position where, you know, 6-7 years ago I wanted to be in, and I felt like I'd made it. Now that was the problem. I felt like I made it. I got a little bit stagnant with when I was there, but the opportunity for me to work for my football club is something I would never forget. And whilst I was at the football club, I know you've spoken to Craig Gill, and Craig Gill's been on here. He works for the Birmingham community. I started working for the community as well, so I was working for the academy and the community. Now that gave me the opportunity to leave my teaching role, and really work full-time, but not on a full-time basis, but to put all my eggs in one basket and really kind of put loads of effort in, put loads of time in it, and make sure that I progress as a coach, and be that arrogant coach of, look, I'm better than this, I can be better than this, and I can be a better coach, because if I'm a better coach, I can make better players or create better players and develop better players. So the opportunity arose for Birmingham to put me on my UEFA B licenses, 1 the outfielder, and 2 the goalkeeping UEFA B license. Now I did my outfield license with Joe, who I know is listening to the call. So I mean, we had a great time, and while I was on that course, as Joe will tell you, I had a phone call on the end of the week where it was one of the busiest weeks in terms of the sessions that we were doing, so we had to be the football players, and it was one of the hottest days and the hottest weeks I've never known it. So it gets to a Thursday and I get a phone call. Joe's driving me home from the first team goalkeeping coach at Birmingham, who was Kevin Paul at the time. just asking if I'd like to do a first team game. I said yes. I didn't realise what he meant. So then he just said to me, okay, well, you know, we've got Walsall. And I'm like, you what? I thought it was just a friendly, an 18s 23s game, which I'd done at Birmingham whilst I was working there. But it was an opportunity to work for the first team. And obviously I absolutely jumped at the chance. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but the one in the middle photo, the guy that's standing up, that's Gary Rowett. He's now the Millwall manager in the Championship. He was the Birmingham City manager at the time. So it gave me a great opportunity to work first team, to work with professionals, and to work with obviously someone like Gary Rowett, who at the time was an upcoming manager and had a lot of press, obviously praising him and looking for a bigger job than what he was doing at Birmingham. And within that opportunity was to coach this guy here, the one with the real dodgy man bun. That's Thomas Kuszak. For those that know, good. For those that don't, he's a former Premier League, Champions League winner and Poland international and #1. So I've gone from just working with academy boys, working with grassroots boys, working with community boys, to all of a sudden one night I'm working with the first team and I'm working with an ex, you know, Premier League winner, Champions League winner. So that opportunity was just incredible, and has really pushed me as a goalkeeper. Obviously he told me off a couple of times as my crossing was really poor, but you learn, and obviously that was a great learning curve. Don't cross the ball poorly to a professional football player, because you will get you'll get it in the neck when you get in the changing room. But luckily we drew the game 1-1, so nothing was my fault. But as I said at the start, when I spoke about when I joined Birmingham City, this was my dream goal. This was me feeling like I've made it. This was me feeling like I'm there. There's no other level, but I still got to push myself. It actually got to a point where it just wasn't pushing me. I felt like I'd been stagnant with my development. I felt like it was just too much in terms of me being a fan of the football club. I felt like I was just going into work, but I'm just looking around going, wow, look at this place. I wasn't going in and pushing the boys as much or as I should have. That doesn't mean I didn't. Obviously I did, but it wasn't to a standard or to a level that it should have been. And unfortunately, I just didn't feel like working for Birmingham actually was the end goal, was actually the dream goal. It was just something I thought of. And when I got there, yes, the first season was obviously incredible. These opportunities where I got to work with the first team was incredible, but it got to a point where I needed to move on. I needed to love the football club as a fan again. As I started to feel like I was falling out of love with a football club. That's no one else's fault but my own, just because I was going into work not seeing the opportunity that I had. So thankfully I had a phone call from a Premier League football club. Well, at the time, sorry, they were a Championship football club, but they were absolutely rocketing up the table, and they were destined to be promoted. So an opportunity arose where, for me, it was a great opportunity to go and push myself and be the coach. I could go into a football club not as a fan, not as a supporter, but as an actual employee, or feel like an employee where I can start making sure that I'm putting things into practice. So Wolves offered me a position to go across and be their goalkeeping coach, which eventually turned into the current role that I'm in, which is the lead 9s to 14s academy goalkeeping coach. And within that, I work with the pre-academy and I lead the development centre coaches as well, which again is 9s to 14s. So as an opportunity, it was again another massive opportunity that I couldn't turn down. With Wolves, I've been to France twice. So we went to a tournament in I can't even say the word, La Tour. And then we've also been on study visits. So we went to Le Havre to look at their academy, and this is something that I hadn't had the privilege or the opportunity to do before. We've also been to Germany, so these were tours that the boys will go on in the academy, so the younger boys will go and play in tournaments, which again was a fantastic experience for them, but also a fantastic experience for us as coaches to go and enjoy. And the biggest experience was to go away and go and travel to China last year, where we took part in the Shanghai Cup, which was part of Fosun, who are our owners, and that was just incredible. Obviously, the opportunity to go to Wolves in terms of a club was massive. Obviously, I worked for Walsall, who were Cat 3. I worked for Birmingham, who were Cat 2 and a very high standard Cat 2. And then to come into Wolverhampton Wanderers, who were Cat 1 and are classed as the third best Cat 1 in the country, was again something that I just couldn't turn down. And since I've been there for the last 2 years, I've really developed as a football coach. And obviously took the opportunity to make sure that I develop as a football coach, because there's a lot more pressure than what there was when I was at Birmingham, when I was at Walsall, when I was at Wycombe, and when I was in Norway. So that opportunity to really push myself was something that I strive for, and I feel like I'm in that position there. And as I've mentioned through my journey, there's been ups, there's been downs, but what opportunity comes next? This photo sums everything up. So I go through all my university years, and it's just summed up in one photo, and it's just a laugh. It's just a carefree moment in time. So what I've got to be aware of is I don't get to the point that I was at when I was at Birmingham, and I'll make sure that every opportunity I have is an opportunity that I'll take, but it has to be the right opportunity. Since I've been at Wolves, I've had opportunities to move. I've had opportunities to go to Reading. I've had interviews here and there as well, which I eventually turned down. And the reason why I turned down is because those opportunities wouldn't push me as a football coach. And I feel like if the opportunity doesn't push me as a football coach, then it won't push the boys that I'm working with. And I think the biggest opportunity that I've had in this journey is Wolverhampton Wanderers. And, you know, if the opportunity, again, like I said, with all the others, and it came up, then I'd definitely take it all again. But I'm from a place called the Black Country, so I talk quite quick and I talk a lot, but hopefully that makes sense. If there's any questions in terms of the actual position that I do, the position that I have, or the coaching that I do, or any kind of questions are based around my coaching, or any questions are based around the presentation, then let Anthony know and he'll get in touch with me and I'll answer those questions. But if you're listening, thank you very much. If you're going to listen, top drawer, thank you.
Great stuff there, Chris. Great stuff. So I think you know, we've been doing a lot of these webinars, and I think for anybody that's been watching any of these webinars, the volunteerism and the putting the groundwork in is probably the theme that's been running through every single one of these webinars that we've been doing for those successful coaches that want to get to where they want to get to. So
yeah, because that's the one thing. I mean, you know, when you asked me to come on again, which is another opportunity to do something. This is can you hear me? Yep. This is obviously you know, another opportunity. It's my first webinar, which is fantastic, and something to learn from. And again, it's that sort of, I'm a big believer in opportunity, in networking, in connecting with people, and hopefully you can see that in the journey that I've made.
Absolutely, and you know, even these webinars, I had to learn. It's different to a podcast and everything else we've done. So I've learned a lot from just listening to you guys. And Joe Hunt, who is another good friend of ours that's also at Wolves, he works with you there. Not works with you, but he's working with Wolves. Nothing but great things to be said about what Wolves are doing and where they're heading to. It's a great insight into a club that's very proactive, very forward-thinking, very modernized. You know, and basically in a city or an area where Villa and Birmingham City have really been recently, the clubs around it. It's you know, it's been a good insight to both of those. So great stuff there.
Incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to bring up a couple of questions now. Anybody that's listening, fire away some questions. Doesn't have to be on his journey. It could be on, he's obviously a goalkeeper coach, so it could be anything on the goalkeeper side. And really, this is our first goalkeeper person we've had on. We've got Ian Foyer that's coming on next week, but this would be a great opportunity for us to talk about a little bit more of the goalkeeper, if you don't mind. So the first thing I got for you is for those budding goalkeeper coaches, or that's where their passion lies. In the UK, they've had the EPPP around for a while now, and they've brought in phase coaching. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the foundation phase, the development phase, the phases, and then where that leads into a goalkeeper coach to be a lead phase coach. What does that really mean?
So what we look at with the EPPs is obviously making sure that we've got an elite performance plan for the boys that we coach, and making sure that they're getting the full kind of levels of coaching, not just from a goalkeeping point of view, but obviously from an outfield point of view. They have obviously a program for the analysis. They have a program for gym programs. They have sports science programs. So obviously we're providing a lot of work for the boys to obviously get them to where they need to be, and where that phases out obviously with the foundation phase in terms of a goalkeeping side of view. Sorry, my son's just come on. We look at
Michael in the back there.
Yeah, we look at quite the technical side, and build them in a technical element going forwards, and obviously when they move up the age groups and move forwards through the phases, we look at the tactical, but all the way through we make sure that the cycle and the physical corners are always ticked.
Good. Well, this leads into a good question from Joe Stevens. What would a typical day look like for you, or a week? So let's go with a day first, and then a week, so we can expand upon what that day.
A day. Yeah, obviously go in quite early, get breakfast, make sure I'm nice and prepped for the day. And then obviously what we do is we sit down as coaches. So there'll be myself, there'll be the phase coaches, so the lead coaches, and then what we'll do is we'll plan the session. So obviously I'll talk through the session that I have with the goalkeepers. We then talk about the session that when the goalkeepers are integrated with the session, how does that look? And then we look at how we do the 11v11 part of the session as well. And then what we'll do is we'll analyze that, we'll get it filmed, we'll analyze the session, we'll go through it. And obviously then they'll probably have another session at the end. So they'll have 2 sessions a day if we're looking at a day release program. And obviously we'll have evening sessions as well, but there's quite a lot of planning through the day, which is a little bit jointing, but you know, we want to be out on the grass, but most of it is through planning. So again, we'll plan through the day, we'll go and do the session, we'll then analyze the session, we'll have a look at the boys, we'll also sit down with the boys in terms of analysis. So the boys will do the session, we'll then go and do some gym program, we'll go and do some sports science program, and then we'll get them to sit down, we'll do some 1v1 analysis as well, and then we'll obviously get them on the way and get them home.
Okay, good. For those that are listening, if you want to know more about the planning observation, we got Joe Stevens has done a webinar on our website about session planning, and then I've also done one on coaching processes. So the coaching process will really link into a little bit more about what Chris has been saying there. So why don't we expand a little bit upon how, you know, I think out here there's a lot of coaches that coach teams that have a forgotten player, and that's the goalkeeper. And I don't think they mean it in any shape of the word, but talk a little bit how you connect the keeper, both with the technical training, individual training, but then also with the team training, so they become part of the team, they become, you know, not as forgotten as probably years gone by.
Yeah, almost going back onto the question previously in terms of what the week looks like as well. So we almost try and make sure that the goalkeeper's integrated with the outfield as much as possible. So what a Monday might look like for an under 12 might be they do a goalkeeping session with us for an hour, and then they'll do an hour with the outfielders. But then a Tuesday and a Thursday they might do just a full session with the outfielders. But then what that looks like in terms of a coach I would then go and coach them in the goal while they're in the practice. But I'll also work with the unit as well, so I'll work with the defensive units. Does that make sense? Yeah. So obviously I'll then I'll work with the outfielders, also with the goalkeepers to make sure that they're integrated with it. But then we also get the goalkeepers to make sure that they're doing all the outfield stuff as well. So they're getting all the footwork pattern, they're getting all the movements, and they're getting the social side of it. It's quite easy to think back at times where we go, oh, the goalkeeper's in the compost heap over there, we'll get them there. Whereas we try and integrate them as much as possible to make sure that 1, they're getting to know the boys, 2, they're getting to know how we play, and 3, they can play the way we play.
Absolutely. Now, that's a great answer to those questions. So I've got another question that's come in. So the goalkeeper typically is a later, let me get the wording right here, is later at getting into the first team than probably an outfield player would be. A, because there's only one position there on a field to be had, and B, historically goalkeepers are that little bit older with experience going into a team, and they age out a little bit older than what the average outfield player would be. So how do you set up mentally, socially, culturally that player for that long-term development, knowing that it's different to an outfield player?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, in terms of goalkeeping, the average debut for a goalkeeper is 20, 22, 23. So in terms of longevity, in terms of development, they've got a little bit more time than what an outfielder might have. But what we try and do with our boys, regardless of what the age is we make sure we're just being honest with them. So we sit down with not just the boy, but also the parents, and make sure that there's a plan in place to say, look, you know, it's not a quick fix. It's not 16, right, you're in the first team. It could be a prolonged development. And again, with the goalkeeper, it gives us that little bit of time to develop those areas that they really need to improve on to make that first team debut. But again, we just kind of, we give them and provide them with as much evidence as we can. So obviously we get them to listen to podcasts in terms of listening to the pros and their journeys. We get them to listen and read up in terms of, so if we find some articles around goalkeepers that have obviously been late developers and then make a later debut at a later age, we make sure that's passed down, so you know they get a better understanding. And obviously we then also have the loan system as well, so when the boys are at you know the professional phase, they can go out on loan and learn the game before they come back to play the game.
So by putting them out on loan, you're saying that some of these boys in the lower leagues are probably making their debuts younger, or you're putting them out on loan at 22, 23?
Yeah, so obviously we look at their physical attributes as well. So obviously if the boys can cope with you know a non-league game or non-league season, then we'll make sure that they're going out on loan to kind of learn the game and learn the physical side of it. Because you know, no offense to non-league, but it's a highly more physical game than what you get in the Premier League. You know, you're going to get people treading on your toes rather than people staying away from you because you know the ref's going to blow the whistle. But we just make sure that the boys are fully prepped as much as possible to kind of get that debut. And also we also have the new under-23 system where you know they're getting a Premier League standard game, and also the Premier League are now doing like an international cup as well. So our boys played Paris Saint-Germain last season, so that's you know another opportunity for the boys that are at younger age groups to go through and then playing.
That's good, more meaningful competition. So how many games would you say that would be for whether it be a goalkeeper or a budding youngster playing outfield? How many games would that be in a year that'd be competitive, meaningful games?
Obviously it's all relevant to the age groups, but obviously with the younger age groups we try and play one or two games a week. Obviously we're playing against teams that we feel that standard as what we are or better, just so there's a competition edge there as well. But then we also get them involved in tournaments, whether it be tours away and abroad, but then we'll also hold our own tournaments. And obviously with selective teams that come in to make sure that our boys are being challenged. And then obviously with the older boys, we just make sure that obviously they're playing as much as possible. And just getting as much game time as possible. Just, you know, it's difficult as a goalkeeper, especially if we've got an age group with two goalkeepers. We try and then arrange like a midweek game as well. So we make sure that minutes are topped up as much as possible as well.
Now, I was going to say, obviously, as the kids are aging through each year, there's going to start becoming a surplus. That's not the word, but a player pool of goalkeepers that are coming through.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
How do you manage those players? And obviously, again, you told me you sometimes put them out on loan, but I'm guessing if you're having two per age group and you're not getting debuts till 22, 23, there's going to be a rack and stack among goalkeepers.
Obviously that's something obviously that obviously our head of goalkeeping would answer a little bit better than me. Obviously he'll have more of a say on it than I would, but obviously what we do with the younger boys, especially when they're going to the 13s, 14s, we know obviously that you know the industry is quite an elite industry. So obviously it's just making sure that we recognise the elite players as it may be, and recognise the boys that we feel that can go through and progress in a future development. So obviously we try and, you know, there might be a stock up of players, but we try and make sure that it's ciphered down to obviously make sure that everyone's getting as many minutes as possible.
Okay,
So
good.
it might be a case that obviously we've got one goalkeeper who's in a lower age group, then we can play someone down or play someone up, just making sure that everyone's getting the minutes that they can get
for development. Good. So so obviously the big thing is the change in the way the game's being played. There's always phases in the way that the game is being played from the ticky-tacky days. Now, of course, Pep's changed things around. You've got a lot more that people are even forcing to play from the back. So how does that affect you and your training and your goalkeepers, and how does it affect those goalkeepers? Are they now incorporated a lot more into outfield training and training principles and methodologies than being with the goalkeeper? You know, is that become more of a norm to be able to get the footwork going and the confidence at the back and not freaking out?
Yeah, no, you know, it is a changing world. I mean, we look at, you know, we term it the modern goalkeeper, and obviously with the footwork and everything, we try and integrate them into the outfield sessions as much as possible. You know, we've got this time off at the minute, so we're making sure that their possession, their footwork is really topped up as much as their hands are, if not more. You know, goalkeepers used to just be seen as the person in goal, but now they are the actual 11th player, and they're part of, you know, most goalkeepers in teams are the ones that create the tempo. So it's always played through the goalkeeper. Should we play quick? Should we attack? Should we counter? Should we then hold it? Should we then play? Should we be calm? So like, yeah, we're just trying to integrate them as much as possible into outfield sessions, but then we also have core blocks of what we work on. So obviously we might have 1 week of distribution as well, but we always try and keep it small, tight, quick, speed, fast, but we also add a lot of pressure to them. So it's not just playing without pressure, because if you know, in a game, if you're being chased down and all you're used to is not playing under pressure, you don't know what to do, and you just panic and you just kick it. So we try and apply as much pressure as possible, so the boys are really used to playing under pressure and playing sharp and quick.
Have you found then over the years of the shift and change in the way that the goalkeeper plays, have you found that some of these players could probably develop just as good on the field, or are they still a little bit behind? And don't take this as a bad way, are they still a little bit behind on what the average player would be on the field? Hang on 2 seconds, I may have lost you. Hang on, you press something and right, go now, try now.
You good?
Yeah, back on. Stop touching the computer. So did you hear my question?
No, it literally cut off just as you started talking.
So my question there was, and no disrespect to the goalkeepers, but with the times and the presence changing, do you find that a goalkeeper now in this present day could be equally as good on the field, or do you still think they're a little bit behind and a little bit panicky in situations where they're not accustomed to or used to? Or are we so far down that pattern of play now that these players, that's what they know, especially at the age that you're?
Yeah, so yeah, that's why we try and integrate them as much as possible, just so we can get them to, you know, for me, there's goalkeepers out there that, you know, have better feet than the outfielders. So it's almost to a case that we want the boys to be outfielders, and just have, you know, the advantage to use your hands. And it's that case of, you know, just repetition, to kind of get them to that level. Now, for me, are we being left behind in terms of the footwork? No, obviously, you know, we're trying to make sure that what we plan, and what we kind of put in place has that effect.
Okay, well, good. Well, again, I'll remind those people that are on our listening here. If you got any questions, don't hesitate to give us a question. We're gonna wrap this up a little bit, Chris. We've taken, obviously, you got your little one there, and I got my little one battering down the door right now. So, absolute pleasure for you coming on. I'd like to ask you, I want to dig more into the goalkeeping side. And now that you've done your first webinar with us and you've gone through your journey, would you be interested in coming on and just really going through your phase age groups and really your goalkeeping that we can then apply? Because I think a lot of people here in the States, and I'm sure a lot of people in the UK, we don't hear enough from goalkeepers. So is that something?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you know, going back to my opportunities to do this, obviously it was good. A little bit nervous, but you know, it's something that I need to work on. So it was a great opportunity to come on board. So thanks, mate. But yeah, I'll happily come on and talk a bit more goalkeeping and a bit more sense in that term.
Yeah, I think that'd be great if we did a little presentation on the goalkeeping and really the route there and some of the some of the pros and the cons for a keeper coach and also the goalkeeper and implementing. I think there's some really good content that we could probably help any coach, any budding coach, or any coach currently in the profession, especially on the goal side. I think I still think, even though we have club coaches, we have club goalkeeper coaches, I still think it's still too disconnected. So for a lot of our coaches,
it's getting better. It's getting better.
Yeah,
We'll be there. We'll be the top scorers one day.
Wow, there's some good. I remember some good goalkeepers scoring pens. So
true.
And on corners. But for me, there's no more questions on this side. I think really more than talking about the goalkeeper, we're talking about your journey. It's been a fascinating journey, and I think I'd remind the people that are listening that the same thing, the same things that I'm hearing time and time and time again would be, when you start out and you want to be a coach, volunteer. Don't turn down opportunities. Don't think about the money before you think about what you want to do. And you know, I've been in the game a long time. I feel not as long as some people, of course, but 23, 24 years now. And I've done the same thing when I was a kid. But I think this day and age, especially here in America, there's a lot of kids that realize they come out from school, they could do a little bit of coaching, get paid for it. But like you said, you become too familiar, you become too reliant upon maybe that money, or maybe, you know, just staying on that platform. And I don't think we're doing our kids justice. It's not about us developing ourselves. It's more of a process. Again, you know, I've done that coaching process, but it's more of a process that if we develop, we're making better kids. And if we make better kids, the game gets better. And if we can instill that inspiration, then we're going to create the next generation to continue the game going forward. So I think it's really enforced what you've been saying today, and the types of places you've been and the types of experience that you had. And you could have turned down any of them. Like you said, you could have said, no, that's not for me. That's a little bit, you know, I tell you, it's not my, I should be telling you mine, but I'll give you a little bit of my story. I was in a fantastic job in the UK, fantastic job. I was doing really well at 18 years old, 19-year-old, stupid amounts of money, jacked it all in like that to earn $100 a week in the States for doing a couple of camps. And people thought I was nuts. But I'm here 20 odd years later, and I've met a lot of people throughout my way. I've worked for different clubs in the UK, and I've done a lot of stuff in the US. So I think that the general information, and you've just capped it with what your journey was for the last 10 days of the webinars, has really been important. I hope it hits home to some of the people out here. Did you have anything you wanted to add while we're on here? I freaking lost you again. Hang on.
There you go. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, there I am. Yeah, just almost echoing what you're saying. For me, like when I went to uni, it was my uni degree become second towards the end of my final year, because I was in that industry of what I wanted to do and the reason why I went to uni. Although, you know, I wouldn't say take every opportunity, just take the ones that you really feel like are going to change you. So although you might have an end goal, you might, you know, want to be a certain coach or a certain player, almost kind of pre-plan what sort of opportunities might come up, and certain opportunities that might actually get to where you want to be. And it's not a case that it's going to be, oh, I've had this opportunity, I'm going to get there now. There's going to be different, you know, different pathways. So it's just making sure that you have a look at the opportunity, and if it's going to do it, then take it.
Fantastic. So no, there was a hand up from Ivan Romenko. So if you can hear me, Ivan, I seen your hand up. There should be an area there where you can write a question if that's what you wanted to do. So if you have a question, just write it in. We'll give a couple more seconds for you to do that if that's why your hand was up. Joe hasn't put anything in. So apart from that, it's been absolutely fantastic. I do appreciate all of the people that come on, our guests that come on to give up their time. I know in this the new normal that we're in currently, it's trying to get things done and trying to keep our minds active. But I think we're all putting things to good use by having some of these webinars that are available to people just to watch and learn and take on board. So I appreciate it. I really do. I know Joe is a really good friend of yours. And of course, now you've met Timo, who's also another Brummie, and he's a Birmingham City. He's a Villa fan. So
is he? Oh,
yeah,
nah.
Villa, and I've got all I tend to do now is employ Birmingham guys. So I've got the Villa and I've got the Birmingham. Just need to get a Wolves boy in. So anyway,
no,
it's been good.
No, thanks for the opportunity, mate. Thank you very much.
No problem. I've not seen anything come in from Ivan. So if there's nothing else we've got there, let's see if we can book in another time with you, Chris, so we can talk about
perfect.
The goalkeeping. Again, thanks for everything. Appreciate you. Great
no
stuff.
Worries, mate.
We'll speak soon.
Perfect. All right, take care.
See ya.